Hey, top of the morning to you. Let's go ahead and make a video about how to add a database to an MVC application. In this tutorial here, we're just going to add a we're going to add a database directly, and then I'll also show you how to go into your web.config file here, which is essentially how your application sees a lot of, I guess, information on configuration for error pages and for, you can see validation. Just kind of walking through it here, you can see the types of namespaces that are used, referenced for your web project, and this is actually really common for all applications, even if you're not using a web application. You may just not see the web.config, but we have, yeah, our assembly builds and everything. We can tell it if we're going to debug. You can turn this to false if you don't want to and you're deploying. So let's take a look at one section here called connection strings. I want to see if there is one, and it doesn't look like there is, so we'll have to make our own. So to start off this tutorial, let's go over to the Server Explorer. And again, if you don't see that, you can go to your view and the view at the top, and you can see you can probably just barely see it, but it says Server Explorer, and then this will pop up, and you can see right now that we don't have any data connections. If you open this, there will be a bunch of servers in there, or well, a couple of servers that you may be running. And in my case, I don't really have any running right now. So let's go ahead and let's add a database here, and it's pretty simple. You just click on your app data, and I see that my add is going on the wrong side here, so I'm going to hit add. Let add new item, and then I'm going to go ahead, and you can see we have a bunch of different options here, but I'm actually going to go to data, and here you have a bunch of different options. You could just add an XML file, which is a form of data. You could add a link to SQL class, DB context, all sorts of these things, and these are more classes to control between your controller and your data. This is more of just a data set, so it could hold several different tables and information. You have your ADO, entity data model. But in our case, if you're going to add a standard database, you're going to do an SQL Server database. I'm going to leave it just named as database.mdf. Alright. And it says you're attempting to add a special type.mdf to our ASP.NET website. In general, to use this type, well, you can read it yourself, but do you want to replace the app data folder? And yes. Because typically you put it in your app data folder, and that makes it a little bit easier for some background code to kind of locate. And it's going to do a couple things. It's going to build the database for us. It's going to create a couple tables for us, create some security features for us. It does a lot of heavy lifting. And if you see this issue here, that could be for a couple reasons, but one of them may be your SQL Server is not running. And if it's not, you need to pull up your SQL Server management or configuration manager if you didn't configure it to start up automatically. And you click it, and then it'll say yes, and then it's got to pull up here really quick. And then go ahead, and you can see mine is stopped here. You can see the state. I have a couple different versions, but this one here in start mode is manual, so I'm going to hit start. It's going to start up the service. It's going to get the server running here. Usually this is pretty quick. So I should also note that you can connect to a lot of other databases that are just local as well. So if you just want to run a local database to it, like an SDF instead of an MDF, that's fine too. It'll all work and run the same, just instead the database is deployed with the project instead of deploying the project, and then you have to deploy your database usually separately. So I'm going to pause this real quick. Alright, so this is finally completed, and now we can get rid of our timeout, and our prompt came back up, so let's retry adding again. And now it should add this to our project. Now that this is all running, I'm going to close my configuration manager out. You're not going to need that again. Bam, look at that. Alright, so we got our log file here for the MDF, and for our database, and we have a database. Pretty sweet. Cool. So Now we have this database connection over here. We can drop down. We can see that it built several folders for us, right? Types, assemblies. You can browse through if you want. I don't think you'll have any tables or views. You shouldn't have any stored procedures unless they're automatically generated ones for maintaining the database integrity. So, yeah, you can see it's taken a little bit there. So, in any case, let's just make a quick connection string and then we'll call it a day here for brevity. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of my web config file here. I'm going to close this out for a second. I'm going to go down to the bottom of my web config file here, and underneath yours might be a little bit different, and that's okay. So down here, I'm going to add a connection string, and I'm going to say add. I have to give it a name, and I'm just going to call it default connection for right now. And then you need to actually set the connection string, and in this case here, you'd say data source is equal to local DB version 11.0, and you say attach DB file name is data directory, and we named it. I can see this is going off already, running into issues here. There we go. So this will be this is our connection string. We call it database.mdf, and we have to say integrated security equals true, right? And if you don't even want to make this connection string, you can even just right-click your database here. I think I've had a different tutorial on how this works, and you can say properties, and then pulling up our properties here, you can actually see that it has the connection string for us all the way across, and it's pretty big. But you could just copy and paste this too if you wanted. So closing that out, and actually that's all there's going to be to it, just these 3 little lines of code. So we have to give it a data source. We say attach database file name because this is an attached database, and then data directory just simply says, hey, I want you to point to that folder that we so conveniently told you that you should put it in anyways, so the app data, and then / your database name, which is we just left it database. And then integrated security, this might be SSPI or true, or maybe you don't have any. Typically when you add a database, you can just set this equal to true. So, and that's going to conclude this video.